fluctuation again, and then we saw a series of also increase and decrease due to various factors in the gross domestic product. And then at 2009, we experienced the global financial crisis, which also led to a decrease or a decline in the gross domestic product. And then after that, most countries have been emerging quite well and have been producing uh, in very good quality and quantity. So we see that it has been increasing and also decreasing from the first graph. And during this time, from the first when the first case was identified in China, we saw that most of these financial companies were saying that we are going to see a bloom in our economies, but due to the pandemic, we have been seeing is a decline in what has been happening in our gross domestic product. If we come down to the graph below the global GDP growth graph, where we have the conversion growth or decline due to COVID-19 graph, we see that various sectors have been affected, and this has led to their revenues declining. So we see sectors that are non-essential having a decline in what they produce. So for instance, we see the advertising industry, the construction industry, the energy industry, the education industry, and even the finance industry having a decline in most of their revenues. But we see most of the essential services like food, healthcare, pharmaceuticals having an increase or a growth in what they produce, because as we see currently, that is what most of the consumers tend to need during this time of the pandemic. So also we have seen that most countries had very diverse economic projects that aimed at them growing during this time and even to achieve a certain vision. For instance, in Kenya, we had the Vision 2030. We've seen the tourism and conference economic project in Rwanda being adversely affected due to the travel bans and people now not engaging in conferences. So this has led to that economic projects in Rwanda to face let's say a slow motion. So that has been something that has affected the economies of the country. We also see India being affected in terms of their medical tourism. Most of the people here, or even in various countries, used to fly to India. But when the COVID-19 pandemic hit us, what we see is now many people flying back to their countries so that they can just stay with their relatives and even see if they can come up with an impact in their country. So what this has done to India, we have seen that it has slowed down their economic project. And then when it comes to China, we know that China had the initiative of building the Belt and Road Initiative that was to connect Europe, Asia, and the rest of the world. But right now, we see due to various resources, they have not been able to actively continue in building the roads. So this also has slowly affected the economic project, and they had a goal to finish that by a certain year. But that during this time, we'll see that it will be slowed down, and maybe it will extend to around with 3 years. So that is a slow go on their side. Uh, in Kenya, we also had the Big Four agenda. We were aiming towards this. Most of our industries were growing towards this. But right now, what we see is most of our economic projects have slowed down due to the pandemic. But what we are trying to do is to see how we can save our entities and how overall we can help our countries grow in terms of our economy and our gross domestic products. So if we come down to what has been happening to major business entities, we see that our business entities have been hit majorly. We see that, for instance, these statistics that I'm presenting to you here are statistics that have been identified in July alone. We see KPC losing 2.8 billion Kenya shillings as Corona cut demand. We have also been seeing that BAT has been retrenching their staff, and this has cost them around 1.1 billion in only 4 years. LinkedIn has also cut their jobs due to the pandemic, and this is something that we see day in, day out. We've also seen that now most people are not buying cars, and now car sales have gone down by 24%. So that is around 6,294 units. Uh, it has gone to, sorry, 4,628 units from 6,294 units. So this we can say is due to now most consumers don't demand for cars, which is not essential during this time. But also we see that now other consumers are also buying the cars. So meaning that it's kind of a balanced traffic, because now we see the overall demand is slowing down. We also see that the Bank of Africa in office spaces is now selling its office spaces so that it can meet the CBK ratio. So this is quite a worrying trend, but we should not give up due to this. We also see countries, businesses like Ronaldo uh, being auctioned because of rent arrears that has been in their premises. Ronaldo is a very famous restaurant. It's one of it's in the best places in town. But what we see is now it's not able to pay their rent. So now it's being auctioned over this. We also see that now auctioneers have pounced over IMAX theaters because of 8 million rents. We also see that Tuskegee is about to sell majority of its stake in a bid to rescue its company due to now the challenges that it has been facing with their suppliers. We also see the housing finance are seeking bailout from new investors because of their 1 billion debts. We also see that now banks also seize the assets that it has been seizing. It has been a challenge for them to sell because of now the prices in bids falling. So this has been a very this has been factors that are affecting us as business entities, and also as individuals. You've been able to see that most of the people, the middle class people, downgrade to less pricey apartments. So now what should we do as business entities? What should we do as individuals so that we can be able to rescue our businesses and also rescue ourselves during this time? So when the pandemic hit us, we've all been trying to do something. We've all been trying to see how we can save ourselves, how we can save our business entities. So for instance, you have been seeing people and businesses entities trying to kindly mute. Thank you. So you've been seeing business entities trying to conserve their cash and minimize risks. So they have been doing this by maybe retrenching their staffs. They have also been doing this by, if a business used to rent around a whole floor for its business activities, we see now it only takes a half of that space so that it can reduce on costs. We also see that most businesses are now trying to seek certainty. So if a person used to was in the real estate industry, we see that now that individual or that business entity right now, it's not sure if should we sell our properties or should we just wait and see how this economy progresses, because we might sell our property but at a lower price of which it will not meet our needs. It will not meet the intended purpose that it was meant to meet. So this has been quite a challenge for most of us. But what we have been seeing is most of us are just trying to see how we can make sales and how we can produce products and services without being affected negatively. So what we also see is we see that most businesses are trying to support what they do. They don't want to get out of this phase or remain in this phase, same looking irrelevant. So what we are trying to do here is they're trying to support the core businesses, but these are short term effects, because we see that it won't be sustainable for most businesses to just sit there and see how they can support their core businesses. They need to know how they can change, or how they can, sorry, or how they can grow so that they can be able to meet the needs of the client and also they can be able to meet their needs of their staff and of the business entity. So what can businesses maximize on? So we've seen the government are sharing or giving us a very favorable fiscal and monetary policies. So this can help us know which products can we rely on or which services can we do so that we can be able to meet the needs of our clients. We can also reduce the prices of our goods in a way that it will be economically fit for us as an entity and for our clients so that we see a rise in the demand of our products. So we also see new growth opportunities during this time. So for instance, during the severe acute respiratory syndrome in 2002, we saw at that time Alibaba was just trying to grow, but eBay was one of the most uh, selling e-commerce platforms. But what Alibaba did during that time, it was able to identify that this is their time for them to grow. And what they did at that time is they were able to identify the growth opportunity that was presented by the pandemic, by the epidemic at that time. And at that time, they were able to take technology into their hand, and they were able to grow very greatly during that time, and they emerged very uh, successful and even defeated eBay. So we can be able as business entities to see the various growth opportunities that are presented to us during this time. So what we need to do is identify what channels or what growth opportunity has this pandemic thrown to our businesses. So we also see a shift in customer needs, and now customers and consumers, what they used to do was they used to demand for most products or any product that were not very essential. But right now what we see is now consumers are trying to demand for essential products. We also saw a research that was conducted by EY, and EY told us that from the research, uh, 37% of consumers will now be seeking to consume local products. 25 of these consumers also will be seeking to consume trusted brands, and also 23% will also be willing to consume ethical brands. So what can we do if we are a brand that produces products and services? What can we do so that we are able to meet the changing needs of our clients? And then there's also need for us to remain competitive during this time. You don't want to get out of this event, this pandemic, without being known for what you do best and having uh, captured a very wide market. So let's look at what technology has done for us during this time. So before the pandemic, the technology was just rising simply. We saw technology coming, but most of us were not embracing technology. So we see a curve that is linear before the pandemic hit us. But what the pandemic has done, it has accelerated technology. And what we see currently is us now using online platforms to do our businesses. Right now we are using Zoom, of which most of us even didn't know how to use Zoom. So what this tells us is we should take technology to our advantage now that the pandemic has accelerated this. And how can we do this? So you can use technology to market your brand. You can ensure that your brand remains visible during this time. You have seen that we have been able to come across many co-working spaces, and this is due to technology. So if you just need to work for a very short time and you don't have enough money to rent for a whole month, you just look for a co-working space and just work on your project for a period of 1 week. So all this is technology. So we need to realize what should we do for our business entities in regards to technology. What do we need to do? What do we need to enhance in our businesses, and what do we need to improve in our businesses as we use technology? So in this, we can be able, in our various business entities, we can be able to carry out a technological audit so that we can be able to see which relevant technologies can suit our businesses, and if used rightly, how can it help us grow during this time, and how can it help us meet the needs that are changing of our clients. And as we discover what technology is doing to us, we should also not lose sight of other risks that are involved. We talked about this in our previous webinars, risks like cyber security. We also need to look at this as we are trying to use technology to our advantage and mitigate all these risks. What this has struck, it has struck a number of feelings for most of us and for our business entities. And with this said, I would like to welcome my colleague Regan to take us deeper into this presentation. Regan, if you can hear me.
Yeah, so thank you, Phyllis. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, so just to add on what Phyllis has talked about, the statistics that she has just shared, those are everything that have happened in July alone. But what are the current mood in Kenya right now? So what are Kenya going through? What are most of us going through? So this pandemic between March and today, a number of us, this thing has triggered shock in a number of us, which has brought in disbelief, and it has definitely disoriented most of our plans. The second thing is the setbacks. Those of us who are going through a setback, then you've gone through stages where there are this, you've known there are guys you've been working with and you know most of their characters. So during this stage, you might realize that some people are developing anger issues and you know them to be very cool people. Okay, some are even getting into the acute stages. Okay, before these are just part of the processes that majorities of Kenyans are going through, just to get to understand what we didn't anticipate as a country. So my advice has always been check on your colleagues every single day. It might not be every day, but just once in a week, just pick your phone and check on your colleague. Okay, majority of people are saying the guys who are in government institutions, they are not affected. But that statement may not be true because they are also overburdened with most of their friends, their relatives who have lost their jobs. That means from the little income they are earning, they have to support a large number of dependents. And some of them are also in these stages because they feel overwhelmed. We've had cases where some of our clients are giving us a call and asking us what they need to do because they are now hosting a number of people in their households. And the kind of cash they get, they cannot survive with that. So it's a very normal thing, but just check on your friend. So each of them, that is you and me, we are grappling with a lot of fury. Okay, these are standing on themselves as depressions, anxiety, and self-recrimination. Okay, so this is mostly pointed out in form of rages. So take note of some of these things within your colleagues and even friends. Those who have been laid off, like the news that is just in today is that KQ apparently has started initiating the retrenchment process. People started receiving their letters from Monday, and I know a number of people actually feel cheated because they have done so much for the company, but when it comes to the time the company needs to think about them more, this is the time the company is letting them go. For me, it was even better for KQ to tell their staff to hold on. If things, if we normalcy return, then we are going to give you guys the first priority. But that is not the case. What they're executing as we speak is they're actually removing people from their jobs. So everyone is feeling cheated on, and every effort everything they did to sustain that company, they feel that none of them has really assisted those entities. So this rage may be expressed like sometimes you just find yourself shouting to your family members, shouting to your caretakers. Okay, we are very small arguments within your your home environment. So take note of this or this kind of expression from your colleagues, from your family members. It's something deep that they are going through, but you really need to sit down and find out what is it and how you can assist them. So what I want you to remember, even as we discuss uh, this element of salvaging businesses, because this thing affects us differently. Remember, these jobs ups and down, they are the circle of life and not a person's persecutions. I want you to take note of that. Okay, don't feel that you are being prosecuted. Okay, but this is the nature of our businesses. In our previous webinars, we did talk about how you need to keep yourself relevant during this period. But we saw it wise now to focus on businesses, because if these businesses remain strong, then our relatives who we are currently hosting, they may get absorbed into these job opportunities. And in effect, this will reduce the kind of burdens we are feeling. So always remember, this is not about you. Okay, it's about the world we are living in. And we must thrive in this environment. Okay, and for your relatives, those of us who are here, that their cards have come up in 2020. The only thing I'll tell you is you will survive. Okay, so let's not spend. It's a very difficult process, but my advice is let's not spend a lot of time demolishing ourselves. Okay, but start looking for ways that we can use and ride on to survive. Okay, the beauty is this pandemic might actually shoot us in even a different and better path. But one thing that remains is you will survive. So some of the things that I want us to discuss today, I'm going to take you through the case studies in how you can maintain your business if you're running your business, if you are a key shareholder in your organization or an influential personality in your organization, or you aspire to make a difference in your organizations. I'm going to share with you some of the strategies that different businesses are doing to sustain themselves during this period. In fact, some of these strategies are currently being implemented. So what can you learn from the stable companies, and how can you bring them back in your own institution to help you survive? Then I'm also going to share with you what things you need to do to survive during this period. And from all these two key areas, these are some of the building blocks or the secret of becoming a billionaire. So, in as much as we are going through a lot, I understand that COVID-19 has presented a very unique challenge to all of us. Okay, so both business leaders and employees, like most of us, okay, there is need for us to redefine the future of our businesses. We need to sit down and redefine the future of our businesses and prepare for what is coming and what the world is calling the new normal. But for us to do that, we must stay focused to survive this virus turmoil. That's the bottom line. In everything we do, one thing that lies down, one thing that stands is that we must stay focused. And I know there's a feeling amongst Kenyans that most people in stable jobs, okay, and they are continuing to work and accumulate resources, okay, while the casual workers, those people who are in unstable jobs, okay, they are continuing to they are continuing to overutilize most of their resources. So there is a fear that after this pandemic, we are going to have extremely rich people and people who are trying to get back to their initial fit. But if you take key note of what we are going to share with you today, I'm certain that one or two people are going to come up with something that if you sit in a board then you're going to make that different. So for a while, the private sector life has long been characterized by periodic closures and redundancy. And of course, we know most parastatals and government entities have experienced some level of stabilities. But now, the kind of layoffs we are seeing, the kind of struggles we are seeing, they are going to span beyond the private sector. And this is what is coming. The international institutions, okay, will suffer cuts ahead as government budget strains everywhere. The same is going to happen for aid programs. For nations who are currently spending billions trying to head off a long-term economic depression, the aid budget will come a long way lower than the debt service costs. So both the international institutions and aid programs are slowly going to be affected. And we've seen a number of NGOs shutting down or reducing their workforce. We know Trump's administration have actually have slashed some funds to different NGOs. And this is going to trickle down to every country. So we must be prepared for the worst. And as we speak, we know that Singapore has actually slid into recession. So as a country, the worst is yet to come, but we must be prepared for it. There are so many things we can do right now that can keep us afloat during this period. So these are my predictions that we are going to experience more job losses ahead. We've seen nation media houses doing the same. The airlines are doing the same. Most businesses are actually depleting the little resources they have. And that is what Phyllis was trying to tell you is most people, most organizations are in survival mode. But how do we move from survival mode to implement strategies that are going to sustain us beyond COVID-19? So this is what is coming, but there is a way out. So this is also the beginning of a very beautiful story, that this is the time for us to go back to the drawing board and see the opportunities that the pandemic is presenting. Talking of the beginning, look at what the Kenyan government have done. We are now producing very beautiful cars. The Kenyan government has just struck a deal for mass production of Kenyan-made Laikipia BJ50 cars. Who knew at one point Kenya will be producing their own cars? So when I talk about the beginning of a beautiful journey, then this is just one of the examples. So how many people will this particular company employ because of this deal that has been that the government has just signed with them? So this is the new beginning. If the government is doing it, we can also do the same to our own businesses. Okay, so for now, this is the time to be more confident. If the person who produced this car is confident, despite the fact that they are highly modernized cars in societies today, but because of his level of confidence, he went ahead and signed a deal with the government. That's the level of confidence I'm talking about. We might have different opinions on the shape of the car, the kind of material that I used, even the name in itself. But the manufacturer didn't care about all those. It's all about the confidence. Okay, so this is the time that what we need is experimenting now on what is coming next. Experiments like the car is actually now on the road. Those are the kind of experiments. It does not care whether you have a Mercedes E250, but he's confident enough to try his project on our Kenyan roads. And there are a lot of illicit reactions in our social media platforms. But the guy has shown a lot of confidence in his ability to do something different. So don't shy away from trying the things that you feel are beneficial to the Kenyans today. So what is it that you must understand? What you must understand is it is time for us to move beyond crisis management. It is time for all of us to move beyond crisis management. And we need to envision the future of each and every organization. So these are the following are some of the things that firms must do to survive the pounding corona tide. What I'm going to share with you, I will tell you that the vision may not be clear, okay? However, what I need you to understand after this presentation is that what I need you to understand is that we must create a vision of how we are going to create superior services to our clients in what we are going to assume the future will look like. And that mindset must be calculated in each and every one of us. The first thing that organization needs to do, okay, is you must review the terms of existing facilities. You must review, the first thing is that you must review the terms of existing facilities. My colleague Phil is that initially stated what most organizations are doing. But my advice is it is high time we move from protect and survive. Okay, and we must continue to take aggressive decision or financial precautions that are going to help us look into the next or in what the future holds for us. Okay, so the first thing that we must do is we must review the existing facilities. So this is what most organizations are most, not all, okay? They're actually funded by, let's say, loans from different institutions. And when you look at some of those details uh, in those loan applications, I'm going to take you through where the reason why most landlords are actually pushing tenants to pay. So we are asking ourselves, do these people live in the same Kenya we are living in? Because most of them will tell you guys, I'm paying for my loans, so I also need you people to pay me. Yet there was a directive from the president that was asking financial institutions to be lenient or to defer the payments of clans or their clans that are experiencing difficulties in their cash flows. So in the absence of any specific contractual provision allowing a borrower, that is you and me, okay, to defer repayment. When you read those contracts, there is no specific contractual provision allowing you to defer a repayment. So a borrower's obligation to make a scheduled loan repayment as they fall due is not exonerated by events outside their control. When you're signing those loan agreements, there is no clause that actually specifically protects you by saying, if your business reaches this point that you're unable to pay, then this is what happens. Most of them actually lack those specific contractual obligations or provisions. So many of them will not have those provisions that will exclude them from making payments in events that are beyond their control. However, there is need for you to seek an alternative forms of relief because you are unable to you are unable to service your facility. So the flip side of this is COVID-19 may instead lead to what is in effect a material adverse change to the borrower's financial position and ability to perform its obligation. This itself now, if the financial institution notices that COVID-19 actually is part of, is actually portraying you as being in a position not to pay, then it is going to trigger this clause. That means you are now qualify for an event of a default and a loan agreement. And when bank realizes that you are going to prone to default your payment, then this may trigger a demand from a lender. They're now going to a scenario where they're going to accelerate their repayment, or they're going to push you to make your payment on a timely basis. But you can't do this because you're also struggling to survive. That is how the loan terms are working as we speak. But what are the alternative options then? If there is no clause in your loan agreement that actually exonerates you from making payment in an event that is beyond your control. All is not doom and gloom, as each case will need to be considered on its own merit, including the wording of the loan agreement and the context in which the loan was made. I want you to take note of that. Every agreement will be considered on its own merit. Clauses that may be relevant now include terms like grace periods. I want you to take note of those kind of clauses in your loan agreement. It might not be a business, it can also be your own personal loan. So if you reread your contract, but take into consideration these terms like grace period, disruption events, non-business days, amongst others. This is where now the loophole lies, okay? Unfortunately, none of the above clauses will provide a defense for non-payment by the borrower for an indefinite period. These words, grace periods, disruption events, non-business days, okay? However, a borrower faced with the financial difficulties may seek some lenience from the lender under those provisions. The good thing is most lenders are willing to provide solutions. So take advantage of that. It might not necessarily be a business loan, but your own personal loan. I know some institutions that have actually rejected your loan moratoriums. I know there are some institutions that you applied for a loan moratorium, but they rejected your plea. So you are left there stranded. But I want you to take note of this period, these terms: the grace period, disruption events, and business days. So don't strain yourself when there is a leeway in your contract with your financial institutions. Okay. However, you as a borrower, you must initiate this process by keep on approaching your lenders and telling them, I am not in a position to pay. And those of us who have received these waivers, please document any waivers or amendments to the terms of existing loan agreement arising from your discussion for future reference. These guys, at one point, they may actually reject some of their. This is what happens. The person you made an agreement with might leave that organization, and some of them actually fails to put these things in the system. So down the line, 2 years or 1 year down the line, there is a new person who is now processing, who has taken over your facility. So when you get back to them, you notice that they are not even aware that you had made some agreement with the previous person and they are not documented. So be very keen. If you've received some of these waivers, please document them and have them for future reference, such that if that financial institution may have a problem with what you had discussed, then you already have a proof that these are the things that we agreed on, these are the waivers that I've received, these are the interest that the bank agreed not to be charging me. Because as we speak, most people are acting out of emotions and might make decisions that may be problematic in the near future. So take note of that. Document every agreement. And if your bank has rejected your loan moratorium agreement, please keep on insisting and getting back to them until they get your side of the story. Number two, shifting from the core business. Number two, shifting from the core business. That is number two. The first one was review your facilities with your financial institution, number one. Number two now is what can we do to survive? Shift from your core business. How many of you remember Kodak? And what do you remember Kodak for? How many of you remember Kodak? And what do you remember Kodak for? In fact, a number of articles that I did read sometime last year and before then, most organizations were being advised not to be Kodak. And in fact, it became a phrase in most of the articles. The good news is Kodak stock actually tripled. That is yesterday. Kodak was actually written off as a company that cannot perform in this new age and time. Everyone knows Kodak to be producing cameras which have now become obsolete. We know Kodak as it failed to change with the technological aspect of the society. However, yesterday, Kodak stock did triple. Why did it do that? The company did announces the pandemic plan to start making pharmaceutical ingredients. In fact, the USA now will not rely on drugs from India and China. They want to they now be producing their own drugs. And Kodak is that company. Look at that big shift from what Kodak used to do to now what Kodak is doing. It is shifting from its core business based on the factors that are now at play in the economy. And what has happened? Trump's administration has actually pumped in $765 million loan to this organization. Why? To launch its business of making pharmaceutical ingredients. So let's not sit down and say, this company is coming down, there's nothing we can do. There are different kind of companies that we work for. There are companies that take into consideration their entire staff before they make a decision. And there are some organizations that if you're working for them, you don't feel like an employee. You feel like a shareholder in those entities. You will not be waking up and getting random letters that the board has decided in quotes. So if you're working for a company that makes you feel like you are a shareholder, not an employee, then this is the time for you to make your contribution. However, For those of us who are working in companies that treat you like a third party, that treat you like a real employee, then it's time you start looking for companies that have a culture that embraces you as a shareholder, in as much as you might not be a shareholder. These companies, I can tell you, do exist. So, talking about Kodak, this is what has happened to their stock. Okay, it actually rose by 149.24% on Tuesday after the news was announced by Trump administration. So they remember the company emerged from 2011. It was bankrupt in 2011. And its shares actually went below. So this was a company that was actually written off. But the leaders in this company never gave up. They never used your opinion to close down their company. They kept on thinking. The difference between this and now is, for us, this is the time now for us to think fast and implement strategies that are going to keep us afloat during this period. So I love this statement that came from US, that never again do we want to rely on shipment from China or elsewhere in order to get life-saving medical supplies. So Trump has his own side effects. Trump have his own bad sides. But when it comes to empowering businesses in the US, I think he has done a better job. In as much as he has a lot of his negative sides, one of them is how he is currently managing the COVID-19 in the US. But when it comes to empowering the businesses within these countries, I have a feeling he has done a good number of things. If I come to the Kenyan scenario, I want to look at KenGen and Kenya Power. The reason why I took these two companies is not because they are better or they are the best companies in Kenya, but I just want to take you through supporting evidence to show you, compare their financial statements and tell you what they are somehow doing differently, and you can borrow a leaf from them. But this in any way does not mean that these two companies are actually the success companies in Kenya. If we talk about shifting from your core business, Safaricom actually comes the top. But so many people have talked about Safaricom, okay? And the thing that Safaricom is trying to do. Because even as we speak, Safaricom is now getting into a lending business. They know from their figures that more than 4 million of their customers are still in 2G and 3G, and they're using 2G and 3G smartphones. But since they're also in the process of rolling out 5G, they don't want to leave this huge section of their market out. So what they've done, they are coming up with a facility that will help you get a 4G enabled phone and pay them 20 shillings daily. So they know these are hard times, but how do we make people become active in our platform and we also enjoy the revenues from these 4 million people? So the board sat, their technical seat did sit, they look at the figures and they saw, if we get these 4 million people, give them the 4G enabled phone and only charge them 20 shillings per day, I know a number of Kenyans are going to jump into this opportunity. But Safaricom is gaining. We can also see Safaricom, what it has also done, it's now getting into the gas industry. It just signed a partnership deal. So now they'll be they'll be supplying gases to their customers, but the gases are metered. So as opposed to buying a gas at 2,500, you can buy a gas at 200 and refill it. So they're moving away from their voice business to other areas that they feel will continue to strengthen their revenues. So Safaricom will have been the ideal company to discuss in Kenya when it comes to shifting from the core business. But I want to take you through these two companies that we all know. That is the KenGen and Kenya Power. Mumachi, you can mute. Sadly, we know that the recent news that have been coming from Kenya Power, it has not been a good news, of course. Okay, because we know Kenya Power is in a financial health. It has its financials are actually wanting. Okay, they have suffered massive losses. You've seen the demand in their the demand in electricity has dropped, making them lose close to 5 million in their balance sheet. So that news has not been rosy at all. However, I want us to discuss the difference. What is making KenGen appears to be doing better than Kenya Power? Because why does the power producer KenGen seem to be doing much better despite being it's also a government owned, but it appears to be doing better. But we know KenGen is still has not reached its potential, but it's performing better than Kenya Power, which is also owned by the government. So the answer is KenGen is trying to diversify. They're also trying to do what is called innovation, and there's also lowering their cost. This is not something that they have. This is not something that they're doing. They've been doing from time immemorial. But most of these things they started doing them from March up to date. So they are current things that KenGen is actually implementing. So these are one thing that KenGen did is that KenGen recently bagged its first foreign contract in Ethiopia to drill geothermal wells, an area in which it has over time owned its expertise on. So maybe this is part of an initiative that when you look at the KenGen financials, KenGen actually made a profit of 7.8 billion compared to Kenya Power, which only did 262 million within the same period. So what is KenGen trying to get right? So we know KenGen is not also doing as much as it's supposed to do because of management issues, but amidst all those, there are things that they appear to be getting right. So one is the fact that it bags its first foreign contract in Ethiopia in drilling geothermal. Who would have imagined that KenGen will one day get into drinking water market? So as we speak, it is operating a geothermal spa. That is the first in Africa at Olkaria in Naivasha, and it's moving to bottled drinking water. Okay. So who would have imagined that KenGen at what point? These are the initiatives that they started. When you look at their strategic plan from March, this was part of what they actually planned to do, and they have executed it. So all these ideas emerged from innovation and acceleration platform that help them at the design stage. I want you to remember, I'm not using KenGen and Kenya Power because they are the best in the country. I just want you to bring to your attention what KenGen appears to be doing differently, in as much as we know KenGen is not living to its full capacity. We also know that KPLC is also being mismanaged. The other day, the whole board was sent home, And a week ago, they just brought in their new set of board member directors. But I just want you to understand what they are doing differently. Why and one company is doing better than the other. So already the farm, that is Kengen, they have stopped buying drinking water for their office use. And they're using the cost that they were using in purchasing the water, they are now saving it as part of their reserves. So another thing is that to ensure development of new projects without burning their cash reserves, Kengen is moving to develop a 140 megawatts, that is Olkaria 6, through a private partnership model. So look at how they are preserving their cash. During this difficult period, they did not get into an overdrive of using their resources to do this. However, they went into a public-private partnership model that ensure that they do not exhaust their cash reserves. But that is not all. So a local factory is also being set up to produce special detergents for drilling geothermal wells in what will see Kengen stop importation of the same fluid. So these are some of the things that Kengen have done right, but that does not make them the best performing company in Kenya. They are just some of the things that I was able to pick out to give you as an example of what it means to shift away from your core business. However, all these ideas is a demonstration of a firm driven by foresight and innovation. But what opportunities did Kenya Power lose? So what opportunities is Kenya Power losing, or did Kenya Power miss? The firm had earlier indicated an interest in entering home internet business as part of its revenue diversification strategies. These are the opportunities that Kenya Power wanted to do. So they had earlier indicated an interest in getting into an home internet business as part of its revenue diversification strategies. It even went ahead to pilot home fiber connections in hundreds of households on the outskirts of Nairobi, Ruaka, Ridgeways. This was going to be one of the best cases of shifting from their core business. Okay, this was done in 2018. But what happened? They never saw the light of the day. They didn't even partner with any service provider. So despite them getting into this overdrive, okay, spending resources, this plan was never implemented. The same KPL, the Kenya Power, they had previously sought to create a solar PV hub at their institution in Ruaraka as its way of entering into a green energy space. That was also part of their plan. The other thing that was also part of their plan is of scaling up its consultancy arm and conducting energy audits for large customers. Very good ideas. Okay, and recently, I know this may not be very big. They had auto signal. I know majority of us who have resources, they can actually do this. But recently, Kenya Power also signaled plans to partner with a strategic electric car service provider that will see the utility firm operate solar powered charging stations. But I know those of us who have resources, this is an idea that they can also implement. So it's not that very big idea, but this is what Kenya Power also plans to do. But what is the progress? All these ideas have just remained on paper. And that may be part of the reasons why we are seeing during this period, they are actually suffering losses. However, if they had implemented most of these ideas, like the home fiber, okay, having their own audit firms for energy audit related services. Then they'll have increased their revenue platforms. And the kind of losses that you are seeing today, I believe they will have been minimized. So those are the opportunities that Kenya Power may have missed. So my question to you is, how many plans remain unimplemented in your organizational strategic vision and business? How many just remains as paperwork? You know them, but you've never implemented them. That's my question to you. What is it that you've had the organization wanted to do, which was uh, highly applauded, but they still remain at their implementation stages? So ask yourself that question. And what is it that you can do with that particular answer? The third thing, new frontiers. The third thing, that's the new frontiers. Extraordinary times calls for extraordinary measures. So businesses need to backtrack on their long-held values to venture into new areas. And they must snap into these opportunities that the pandemic is presenting. Kitui County Textile Center and Eldoret-based Rivertex, they are now manufacturing face masks, which are in high demand. Remember, these companies had to stop the production of everything else to concentrate on protective covering. You remember Naivas? Naivas, which had a policy against selling alcoholic beverages, is now stocking beers, wines, and whiskey in some of its stores. Remember, Naivas had a policy against selling alcoholic beverages. But this is what I meant when I said you must backtrack in your long-held values and snap into the opportunities that this pandemic is presenting, because you have to survive. Tuskys. I know Tuskys currently is experiencing a number of issues, okay? But before this, what are some of the things they did differently, apart from just being a supermarket chain? They ventured into an affordable food under its Kibanda food plan for dishes like chapati and beans, githeri and matumbo. And they were charging as low as 90 shillings. Why? They knew that most of these restaurants are now closed. Majority of them didn't have the capacity to deliver. In fact, they didn't even have a strategy to do deliveries. But Tuskys checked into this opportunity and they capitalized on it. New frontiers. When you come to the Kappa Bill is known to be a knowledge institution, okay? But because of this pandemic, it was not easy for people to get back into a conference room. Every institution had advised their staff to work from home. So even getting approval to come into a conference training was a big challenge. So we didn't just sit and wait and waited. We didn't just sit back to wait for the government to allow its employee now to get back to the active training. So what did we do as a company? We went. We signed up. We partnered with a Tupac restaurant, which is located at Rejoice. And what we do now, through that partnership, we are able to do food delivery, both in the offices and at homes. We are hardly, the partnership has not taken more than 3 months, but we get a number of orders from different offices and different estates. And that is part of the things that we've done to sustain ourselves. And Capable being a consultancy firm, we are able to advise the Tupac team to charge most of their meals below 1,000, because we know if any amount that goes beyond 1,000 may be raising that 1,000 for a number of households, especially during this time, it may not have been easier. So what we advised them to do was to price. In fact, most of their items, not all their items, cost less than 1,000 shillings. Just last week, we are now in the verge of opening our first branch along Kiambu Road. But we have not used our resources to do the same thing. What we've done is we've entered into a partnership deal with the landowner. This is going to save our cash reserves, but that partnership is going to serve these both entities, both our company and the landowner. So these are some of the things that you have to think about to stay alive and maintain your staff. My question to you, which opportunities is your business or organization losing out on? I want you to reflect on this question. Which opportunities is your business or organization losing out on? Riding on technology. Number 4, riding on technology. I want you to consider the number of industries suddenly displaced by Zoom and other video conferencing platforms. I'll be very slow here because this is going to take down a number of organizations. The HR team that is here, the finance team that is here, the business head that are here. I want you to understand the concept of riding on technology. Okay, so consider the number of industries suddenly displaced by Zoom and other video conferencing platforms. Business leaders are using Zoom instead of traveling, holding virtual meetings with colleagues and customers in different parts of the country. Take note of that. Corporates, they are using Zoom and Teams to work remotely. Business leaders are using Zoom instead of traveling, holding virtual meetings with colleagues and customers in far-flung corners of the world. Number 2, the different organizations are using Teams and Zoom to work remotely. Netflix has accelerated its takeover on entertainment. I want you to think, okay? With these 3 examples that I've given, it means the first one means Zoom has actually eaten airline and hotels. Number 2, corporations are using Zoom and Teams to work remotely. What has technology has done in this case? Technology has eaten offices. So what will happen to those whose businesses entails building offices, the real estate market? Technology is now eating the offices. The issue of Netflix, I can say this as Netflix has actually eaten the entertainment industry. And I can get into so many examples like, what did M-Pesa do? The M-Pesa actually ate notes and coins. What is the banking apps doing? The banking apps are actually eating the bank branches. So read those examples through. What did the taxi hailing apps do? They ate the transportation industry. Talk about Amazon. What has Amazon done? Amazon has actually eaten the retail industry. What should a thinking business leader do in the face of all these eatings? What should a thinking business leader do in the face of all this eating? I want you to look at this slide and reflect. Okay? What jobs? I want you to ask yourself this question. What jobs does a brick and mortar office building do? If I ask you that question, and I'd be very slow. In fact, I'll cut my presentation after this. The rest we can discuss later. What jobs does a brick and mortar offices building do? What jobs do they do? It allows people to gather and work together. If there's anyone with a contrary opinion, please raise your hand and I know our IT team will stop me. They allow people to work together and work together. That's what the offices do. What does a Zoom meeting do? Meringile. What does a Zoom meeting do? The same. I want you to think of those two scenarios. Okay? What does a brick and mortar office do? The answer is they allow people to gather and work together. What does a Zoom meeting do? They do the same. Is there anyone thinking what I'm thinking? If Zoom alternative becomes easier, cheaper, and more convenient, then the guys in the real estate business, they must look out. We had indicated to you what Facebook is doing, the Google industry have decided to do, and it is soon coming into the market in Kenya. We also told you at Capable, our staff only work. They they're allowed to work from home 3 times in a week. That means in next year, we will actually reduce the size of our office and only maintain the finance team in that office. What will happen to the people who depend on us for rent? We will get into Mombasa and only have a small office in Mombasa. And same to every part of the country. What can make a difference? Okay, what can make a difference? If the bricks allow a more human interaction that is actually better than technological alternative, okay? What they must do, okay? They must allow a more human interaction that is actually better than technology. That is the only way the office spaces will be retained. But if their work is just to make people come gather together and work, something that Zoom is currently doing, then they must rethink their strategies. Those of us who are in service industry, if you make beer, of course, technology cannot still displace the physical and emotional sensation of drinking with friends. That is when why the president went into an overdrive and closed most of these things, because drinking at home has become a difficult thing for most people. But drinking with friends has some kind of emotional attachment that cannot be replaced by technology. So the drink, that is the beer, it's safe, it remains very safe. However, if the job of the bar is merely to sell beer, the technology will have something to say about it. That is why at Capable we talk about capable experience. Okay, anyone can come and train. Okay, however, capable experience means you can call Jason in the middle of the night and tell Jason, I have this report the following day. Can you do it for me? He will do it. In fact, the least thing Jason will ask you is cash. What kind of work do you have? What is your expectation? We've worked overnight for a number of our clients. So we are not just a training institution, but we want you to have what we call capable experience. It's more than just accumulation of CPD hours. If you are a trainer and a consultant, you have more to think about, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? If your job is just to brandish a certificate of CPD hours, okay? The pandemic is here, but you're forcing your delegates, you're forcing your clients to pay. And you know very well most of them are getting into a financial constraint. Your days are numbered. Okay? You must create a bond with your client that is more than a transaction. What you have to do, however, is to use technology to your advantage to improve the experience and utility given to your clients. Then you will be engaged in a very happy marriage with technology, and you will never become its victim. It's your choice. Okay? That's your choice. What I'll tell you is most of these upcoming companies, they are starting software-centered companies, and what they want to do is to take up your job. For us, the choice is simple. We need to use the new technological products to the best advantage, or we are going to be eaten by those technologies. So if you like to remain relevant and survive, if you want to remain relevant and survive, the first thing that I want you to do is ask yourself this question. Which part of your business is technology beginning to eat? I want you to write that down. Question number one. Which part of your business is technology beginning to eat? Talking of this part, the very first time we started our free webinars, we were very manual. And you could see our technical team were sending a link to close to 100 people every day. One of the Sundays, I received a call from Evans. And if Evans calls you at around 7 or 6, then definitely that is a serious case. So he told me, Regan, for how long are we going to keep our team busy sending emails to close to 20 delegates every day than to engage them on something that is going to sustain this business? What are you going to do to simplify this process? That is the question that Evans asked me on a Sunday. I remember that call on a Sunday. Give me a report by Monday of what you're going to do with your ICT team to automate this process. And that was the conversation. I reached out to the ICT team and I told Mwachi, this is what is expected of us. And we have to pull this through before our next webinar. We went into an overdrive and we actually automated this process of sending manual emails to 20 delegates every single day. And right now, if you get into our website, it's an automated process. You apply, you get back an email. So which part of your business is technology eating? Question number 2, can you be the first to deploy this new technology before your competitors do? Can you be the first to deploy this new technology before your competitors do? Question number 3, are there productive alliances and collaborations you should be exploring? Don't drain your cash reserves trying to buy a software. Are there productive alliances and collaborations you should be exploring? And the last question, can we simultaneously enhance our physical stroke analog product and experience, make it viable, attractive alternative for a visual competitor? Capable has been led by question for a very long time. We have never experienced a scenario where the management imposes ideas on the staff. We ask question. When Evans made a call on Sunday, he didn't say do 1, 2, 3, and 4. He said, can you sit down with your ICT team and find a way of automating this process before our next webinar? And we as a team sat down and came up with this alternative. So don't die as a business leader trying to find answers for your team. Create a trust level in your teammates that they're going to give you the results. So lead by asking questions. You will never be quicker than technology. So the more you can do is to be more emphatically human. There's an human element that technology will never replace. And that is why we are coming up with what is called capable experience. Because we know in that direction, we don't expect, and there will never be a technology that will replace capable experience. So the last question to you, is your business or organization part of the companies that is failing to ask these questions or have brushed them away when they were asked of them? So I want you to ask yourself that question. And for the sake of time, I'll want to stop here and we'll schedule another training for us to complete some of the things that I wanted you to do. So before I hand back the program to our facilitator, I want to prepare every business leader that is here. Okay? Your organizations must lead with questions. Okay? And give your team an opportunity to give answers. There are very many occasions that I've sat down with some of our board members, even including in some of the, not even restaurants and even some of the pubs. But amidst the drinking, they will ask you a question that, Regan, what do you think of, who can we partner with during this time to increase our revenues? Then the next thing he'll tell you is, I don't want you to give me an answer now. So you're asking yourself, okay, were we drinking or were we in an interview? But these are some of the ways that the capable board have used to put a number of us in strategic leadership positions. Because if you can give a straightforward answer amidst amidst your drinking spree, then it means your focus is not just on one, your focus still remains to on the company's progress. So sit down with your team and ask them this question: why does our organization exist? Okay, where does it play? Such kind of questions. How can our organization win? Ask those kind of questions. So thank you very much for your time. We will proceed with this, and I'll hand back the program to Calvin, to Mwachi.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Regan and Phyllis. That was one very, very powerful session that we have had today, and I believe we are not the same as we logged into this session. We have been taken through very, very thought-provoking facts on how businesses and entities are facing these kind of times that we're living in today. And I believe that we have questions even amidst ourselves and our individual businesses, if not for the organizations that we work for. So I believe you have really taken very good considerations of all the alternatives that Mr. Regan has shared with us. And I believe we can think about them and see how we can incorporate them in our areas, yeah, in our businesses and maybe our private entities. So at this point, I would like to welcome questions. I would like to welcome questions. You can just raise your hand. I know time has really gone, but I believe it has been worth it. And looking at the numbers, we have really retained, meaning we were so into the presentation, and we could continue listening even if Mr. Regan and Phyllis were to go on and on. So you can just raise your hand. I'll give, let's say, 4 or 5 people to say something, either a question or a comment, and then even as I watch on the time, yeah, so that we don't keep you for long. So kindly just raise your hand or type something on the chat box so that other people can respond. Meanwhile, just as a reminder, I have shared links to our upcoming webinars for next week, but one. Kindly, if you have not registered with us, this is the chance. You can just click and register directly so that come that time you are part of us. You can see Joy has, Joy says, thank you, Regan. Excellent presentation indeed. So guys, if you have questions, we still have the floor open for us. And the links for upcoming webinars are on our chat box. So please let us make use of them and encourage our friends and colleagues who have not had the opportunity to attend this session to also take their time and register for the upcoming webinars. We have the August 11th webinar, which is Africa Leadership and Governance, yeah? Place of values, ethics, and integrity in strengthening economies in a turbulent world. And I believe this kind of webinar will really marry well with what Regan and Phyllis have presented us today. So you should not miss that. We have the August 12th webinar that will look at the blueprint to financial security in retirement. And then we'll have the third webinar on August 13th, which will be bridging the skills gap that organizations face amid layoff. So that is also another very important segment that I think also marries very well with the content that we have just shared today. So I don't see any hands raised. Yeah, I don't see any hands raised. That means we have been satisfied with the session. And even I see CPA Henry saying today's session was a good one. And he proposed that it should not just end here. So we need to educate our leadership teams in Kenya. Thank you so much, CPA Henry, for that. I think this is just one of the sessions that will spearhead that kind of program. Okay, so with that, team, I believe we are satisfied and we are happy with the presentation. If there are no questions or concerns, so I'll allow comments, short comments from 2 volunteers. You can have one gent and one lady before we maybe pray and end our session today. Yeah. Okay, I will pick on for Gent, we'll have Silas. So if Silas, you can hear me, you can just unmute and give us a short comment or a closing remark. It seems Silas' internet has gone off. So okay, we have Jen Apollo. You can unmute and say a word or two. And if Silas is ready, he can talk after Jen, yeah? Jen, you are on mute, yeah? Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, delegates.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank Kapabia for organizing such a webinar. It has been very informative, and I would urge the delegates to go back to your organizations and make a difference. We've been given tips. So I just thank you for everything. I thank you for all the trainings that you have at least allowed some of us to participate in. So thank you very much. And you can be assured that if things come back to normal, I will register for one of your courses. You have very good facilitators, and thank you for the good work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. On behalf of Kapabia, you are very grateful to hear that and feel most welcome. So we also look forward to host you, of course, when you register in our seminars and events. And also feel free to also create awareness to your colleagues about the same. Silas, I don't know if you are ready to speak now. I can see you are back. You can just say a word or two, and then we can end our session. Welcome.
Hello, Simon. Yeah,
Yes, Silas.
I'm not able to put my photo on, my video on. But I'm really grateful for the presentations by Regan and Phyllis. And probably the question we may ask is, how far do we make these proposals to our own lives? Because our lives also require strategic planning. I mean, just like we do for organizations. So how do we make these changes to our personal lives? I think it was speaking to our personal lives also, as much as we are talking of organizations that we work in or we work for that reason. So I'm really grateful. I've been following your programs, and they have been really, really very informative. Thank you, Kapapil. We will work together. Thank you so much.
Okay, that is a very, very positive comment from Silas Osero. We are grateful that he acknowledges and trusts that the points shared today will be very impactful to all of us here, and our organizations are not going to work the same. Now, with that, I would like to now welcome if maybe someone from Capability team has something to say, just as a closing remark, maybe CPA Jason, and then maybe we can close.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. It is my hope that you have enjoyed the session and you've been able to pick one or two in the session taken by my colleagues, Phyllis and Regan. It is our hope that you will be able to pick the lessons and not only keep them, but importantly, implement them in trying to better yourself, both as an individual and professionally. That will make it for this week. Those are all the sessions we intended us to have, and we are hoping that when the next batch of sessions come, I can see my colleague has just projected the very next events we'll be having. You will be glad to join us in participating and continuing gathering the knowledge. That having been said, we want to thank you very much. We know it is a sacrifice that you made, veering off your very busy schedules to come and listen in. We want to commend you for that, and we want to commit that going forward, we still will be here to consistently be able to continue providing these services. So with that said, I think I'll let Simon help us finish off, and that will be it from me. Thank you very much. Simon?
I think Simon is having internet issues, Jason.
Okay, then I think I may just proceed to pray for us so that we don't spend so much time here, and we may be able to resume our daily duties. So then let's humble ourselves for a word of prayer. Father Almighty, we come before you this afternoon. We thank you for the time, for the provision, for you allowing us to be here and congregate, for all that we discussed, the advice we've given. May we be wise enough to implement them appropriately into our lives, professionally and individually. As we move forward to proceed with our day-to-day activities, we pray and ask for your blessings over our lives. May you protect our families, friends, relatives, wherever they are. May you protect us as a country and as a nation and as the world. For all this we pray, trusting and believing in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. We look forward to seeing you yet again some other time. Have a great
Thank you.
afternoon.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you so much. Let me hope you concluded well. My internet had a hitch there. So I will share your certificates, and for those who did not receive their certificates in their past sessions, you can just contact me, then I will share the same. Otherwise, thank you so much, and have a blessed evening or afternoon.